so I started playing center field, and it wasn't until I started playing. And honestly, I've always like played infield. I've been able to play infield, like in baseball, but I never really played it. I was always an outfielder or a catcher. So when Kegel tells me, "Hey, you're going to be our third baseman," I'm like, "Why? For what?"
Hey, that's funny. That's funny because that same tournament they told me I was going to be the third baseman, and I said, "Why?"
For what? Yeah, there we go. There we go.
Ladies man, but I'm unhappy now. For courting 6 girls all at once they use me.
Bye baseball.
My mother said it was naughty, I should kiss her back. But I said if it's naughty, sure it's also very fine.
And the Lolly drops his glove, grabs Dalton. The benches are clearing.
Dust Up with Hilly and Lolly is brought to you by Mr. Ned Custom Men's Suiting in New York City. Whether you're a professional athlete, celebrity, or just a couple of softball bums like us, if you're ready to ditch the old dusty suit and stop dressing like an animal, visit Mr. Ned, located at 137 5th Avenue, New York City, and tell Varm Hilly and Lolly sing. Welcome back, folks. Episode 32 of Dust Up with Hilly and Lolly. And Hilly, we're back recording episodes after I had a week in Newfoundland last week. We got to catch up down there, have a bit of fun, but now we're back on the podcast, and we got a great guest with us tonight with Blaine Milheim.
Yeah, we got a Michigan boy there who transitioned to the game from baseball. I played some college baseball, so interested to pick his brain on that. And he's coming off a big year. ICU world champion, bronze medal at the World Cup, Team USA. So he's doing big things in our game. Looking forward to talking to him.
Yeah, we've been talking about him on a couple of episodes. He's one of those guys on the rise. He's one of those guys that, you know, he's kind of following that pattern that we talk about of working their way and progressing through the ISC from getting started with it, working your way up to a top level team and becoming a champion. So like the guy is an ASA champ, a 2-time ISC champ now, and he's a mainstay on top level ISC teams and Team USA. So excited for our listeners to learn more about him. So let's get him in here. Blaine Milheim. Here he is, Hilly. Blaine Milheim, another ISC world champ with us on the podcast. Excited to get to know him a bit more.
Hey, Blaine, how are you, buddy?
I'm good. How are you guys doing?
Excellent.
Not too bad, not too bad. How's things down in Lansing, is it?
Yes, and it's cold, man. It's cold. We're going through a pretty shitty ice storm, which is pretty interesting. So yeah, pretty crappy.
So now, what's the storm for you guys? Like you're probably saying along the lines of what Lolly calls a storm up in Burlington.
Yeah, it's probably not.
We're getting the same thing. We're getting the same thing here now. A lot of ice.
Exactly.
This is an ice storm, Hilly.
Oh,
that's right. We got flying ice.
That's right. It's very good. It's slippery out there, boys. Like you got to be safe.
It's bad.
And you're in the insurance industry. You know all about this, Mike.
That's right.
Yeah. No days off.
No. Well, we got a lot that we want to go through with you. You got a pretty cool story. I don't know if you listened to the podcast, but we've been talking about you on a number of episodes recently. Big fan of what you're doing in the game and your story. That transition from baseball over to open level fast pitch and how you've gotten to the point where you are now. It's a pretty cool story that I'm excited for us and our listeners to learn more about that. But let's kick it off there because you're coming off a pretty banner year when it comes to the ISC and represent your country. We're going to go through all of that, but let's take it back to I want to learn a little bit more about the baseball side of things, and can you sum up what your baseball career consisted of, and then when and how you transitioned over to the men's fast pitch game?
Yeah. So I played baseball starting. Well, I was always playing in the backyard as a kid, but synchronized 6th grade, 6 years old. Played up until all the way through high school, went through college. I was a little different than a lot of Americans, to be honest, because I actually grew up watching fast pitch. So my dad played, my brother just stopped playing last year. So I actually grew up at the softball park, not really the baseball park. So I kind of grew up watching that stuff. And when I turned 15, kind of had to be a little hush hush because it was supposed to be 16 and above.
Yeah.
But we had a league in our hometown. And so I started playing Fastpitch when I was 15. And, and most people, and it kind of put me at a disadvantage with recruiting with college, to be honest, but I truly felt like I was becoming a better hitter by playing Fastpitch in the summers. So I actually never played summer baseball in high school. So I really didn't get recruited as much as what other players may have.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Oh, hold on now. I just crossed out my first 8 questions, so we got that covered.
That is freaking cool, Doily.
So we got some guys around here that play like Jeremy O'Reilly, Sheldon Keogh, a couple guys that play baseball and softball in senior leagues here. So how do you find like the swing? And obviously you're playing top level softball. Like with regards to the rise ball, we always hear the rise ball, and like what are the difficulties or what do you think about that?
Well, for me, probably until I was 24, it was pretty simple. I swing and miss at them. That was just about it. That was just about it. Like, I'll be honest, like I was a guy that I crushed drop balls when I was, 19, growing up, because I played more of like a B level type at home. So it's kind of known that baseball players can hit drop balls, but not hit rise balls. So that's just kind of how it kind of was. And I remember going to New York in 2021, that COVID year, and just kind of I've never had anybody mess with my swing ever. I just kind of was doing it myself and had 20 minutes for somebody to kind of sit down and look at my swing. And they put me as a starter of hitting rise balls, like predominantly trying to search for rise balls. And that was all I tried to hit. And that was the change in that, to be honest. Like I just solely looked for those.
So with the college baseball, what college did you play for? Like, did you?
So I went to Concordia University of Ann Arbor, which is in Michigan.
Okay. Yeah.
Just right next to U of M, actually, University of Michigan. So we were right there, and went there right out of high school. Started all 4 years. Had a great career, to be honest. And I kind of thought, like I went into the draft, kind of thought I had a chance. I had some decent stats as a senior, so I kind of thought, but I almost feel like I was too old. If I think I had those stats when I was 19, I might have had a shot. But I was 23. I wasn't getting drafted. There's no way. After I didn't, I had already kind of played with the Gremlins. Well, ran for the Gremlins, I guess. But I was on their team and kind of got a taste of, there's some really, really good ball players out there. And for me, it was like, okay, I can do the grind and, ask somebody, hey, can I be on your team to play professional baseball and say that I did it? But to me, I kind of wanted a job and to play at a very high level. And I knew I was nowhere close to that high level in Fastpitch. So it was the same type of competitiveness that I was looking for with pro baseball. So it's basically the same thing for me.
That's cool, man. And that's probably more interesting of a conversation for us with knowing that you were playing both at an early age, at 15, coming from the background. So you had a familiarity with the game of Fastpitch, and I'm really interested to know. So I played like 2 games of baseball in high school in my life. 2 triples, no big deal, not a big deal. But then I also struck out on a like looping curveball that I bent over home plate because I thought it was going to hit me, and it went over my head into the catcher's glove, and I struck out, and I looked like a fucking idiot. But that's another story. But obviously, transitioning into the hitting part of the game, with it being 46 feet, you can step back and jump. The ball can go up. Change up reaction time is a little bit different, I'm sure. But what's it like facing a top level baseball pitcher? How can you compare the difficulties in both sides of it? What's the hardest thing about hitting baseball? And you touched on the rise ball and fast pitch.
Sure. So I will put this out there. So I played NAIA baseball. So it's college. It's not quite D1, 2, 3. It's kind of in between the 2 and 3 type level. So, I mean, you can't say top level. I wasn't playing at a Division I level. So, the guys that we were facing, to be honest with you, not to sound cocky, but I mean, they're throwing 83. Like, I was seeing that in some tournaments underhand, So for me, it was like, speed was never an issue. Like we saw 99 one time, and that was hot. Don't get me wrong. That was very, very hot. But, it wasn't that crazy. I just kind of went to my fast pitch swing, to be honest. Like, I had a separation where I tried to get 2 swings, and it was extremely difficult for years.
Right.
Because it is. And in baseball, they try to keep balls on the same plane, to be honest. And in softball, that's like, if you keep balls on the same plane, they're getting hit out of the park.
Smash.
So that's the biggest difference, right? So like, a slider is a ginormous pitch in baseball. A curveball in softball gets smashed. So,
No, that's cool. But I wanted to ask you around, because Shalesy, which we fucking talk about Shalesy all the time too, but he says that hitting softball is harder, to become consistently with the stats, but to hit one out in baseball, you got to get all of it.
Absolutely.
You got to square it up. When you're using a wooden bat, you got to square it up. But is it, from a power side of things, you find that the fast pitch game, it's easier to be a power hitter in fast pitch than it is in baseball?
Yeah, much more fun to play fast pitch if you're trying to hit bombs. I'll be honest. I was a guy, I hit 1 home run in 8th grade. I didn't hit any in high school. I hit, I think, 9 in college total.
Yeah.
And to be honest, like, I mean, this is league ball and shit ballers and stuff, but, I hit double that now in a year. So, like, you really do. And what I say is it's easier to strike out in fast pitch, but it's actually easier to get base hits in fast pitch, if that makes sense. Yeah. So, like, I see a lot of guys that crush balls 380 with a baseball dead center, and it just gets caught. That doesn't happen.
Oh, man, that's so frustrating, isn't it? We watched a baseball game. How many times, Silly, we're sat down watching a baseball game, someone hits it back, caught at the 400-foot dead away center, said, that's a home run. Like, you can't. Yeah. That's bullshit.
Yeah, it's 340 in our game. It's stupid.
Yeah. 390-foot F8.
Exactly.
Yeah, but that's what I was going to say. I was going to ask you. I remember I overheard a conversation one time about a guy. I forget who it was. Anyway, I don't want to quote him because I don't really know who it was. But anyway, he got drafted by, I forget who he got drafted by. It doesn't matter. And he played high-level ISC ball. And he said it was harder. He said it's easier to hit baseball, but he said it's harder to get a hit in baseball.
Correct. I would completely agree.
Yeah,
and that's just because the field's so much smaller, right? So, like, if I square a ball up, and even if it's a one hopper to the infield, I got a way better shot of having a hit in fast pitch than what I do in baseball.
Right.
I mean, that was kind of my MO, to be honest, hitting one hoppers to shortstops in baseball. So,
it got to be like the MLB got to be one of the hardest professional sports to actually make that league.
Absolutely. It's so cutthroat. So like when I got in college, we had our pitching coach was a former catcher for the Angels organization, AAA ball. And he literally just had a shoulder problem for like a month, and they cut him. I mean, he worked all the way up to that level,
right?
And they cut him within 3 weeks. Like, that's crazy to me.
Like, it's so cutthroat. Probably like 10 Cubans with like the same arm velocity.
Yeah, like that are 19.
That's crazy. Crazy.
Well, enough about that baseball shit. But when you got out of college and you made that decision, that you wanted to focus on your career, but still play and work your way up with that competitive sport of fast pitch. When you decided this is what you're going to try and develop within, how did you get your start, playing in the open game and maybe getting your first taste of the ISC? Can you walk us through that?
Yeah. So I had, starting in 2016, it was in Quad Cities. So whatever that one was, 2016, or maybe 2015, regardless. So we used to play basically our state ball and then kind of run right into just ISC. So I went into these tournaments, winning 2 games in the 2s and just looking at some of these players thinking, oh my God, these guys are crazy. Well, but I didn't know anybody, to be honest. Like, we didn't play any of those top teams, right? So when I first got a call, I was playing against Tyler Dudley in Petoskey, Michigan, and he just comes up to me after one of our games and goes, "Hey, man, somebody's going to call you today, and they're going to ask you to play. Just say yes." And I was like, "Oh, all right." And it was Greg Leather, and he's like, "Hey," he's like, "what do you think about playing for the Gremlins?" And obviously I didn't want to tell him this, but at the time I'm like, "Who the hell are the Gremlins?" And so they kind of invited me, and to me, I was kind of thinking I might have a shot to play, which is silly, obviously. But I remember getting there and looking around and being like, wow, like these guys are really fucking good. And I was even so naive to the point to where I remember very first game, Matty Wah, it was a ground ball like down the line, and he just barely booted it. Guy got to second, and I'm like, fuck, I'm better than him. Get me in here. And then I watched him the rest of the tournament just absolutely rake, and I'm like, okay, never mind. I'm good. No problem.
That's cool. But what was that like from an experience? So you got a couple of years playing more locally within Michigan, and you get to go play in some of these weekend tournaments and get a taste of the ISC experience, playing in the twos. But then you jump on, you navigate the whole season with the Gremlins. But at what point did you recognize those were a top level team? You're playing with some of the best probably to ever play the game have gone through that organization. Was there any eye-opening moments along the way of that year that stood out to you?
It's got to be, I would say, probably the first home run seeing Cheese hit. Because to me, I was like, oh, he's a pitcher. He probably just puts him in here just because. And then he absolutely drops one. And I'm like, oh, all right. He's a damn good hitter, too. And then, to me, like I hit home runs, but like our fences most of the places we're playing are 240. So, like, I mean, you hit a home run. These fences were way longer.
That's fair enough anyway.
And so I'm seeing these guys hit them out at 270. It's crazy. Yeah. No, there was a lot of good. I would say, very first tournament actually. We went to Tavistock and beat you guys in the final, and I remember. Yeah, sorry guys. And I just remember Cheese getting on, and I was his runner, and literally, I remember, ironically, Mullally's at first. And I had watched the video where he dropped 3 home runs in the Canada final.
We're not cutting this part. We're not cutting this part.
So yeah, actually, you guys were big deals to me, man. Like, you guys were the shit. And I grew up watching this stuff, but I was watching level A stuff. So I just knew that this level was better. And I was watching this Gremlin team dominate. And I'm like, damn, I'm around some very, very good players right now.
Yeah. So just to go a little bit off the track there. So how close is Lansing to Frankenmuth, Michigan?
About 2 hours.
Okay. So that's where that's where I started my ISC career, basically, in Frankenmuth. And Lally played his second year there. So I guess I was like 18, but you mentioned Petoskey. So we used to go to that Petoskey tournament every year.
Yep.
Yeah. And that's pretty cool. So you guys, the righties, you hit the home run, right? And it goes right into the water, right? Whatever lake that is.
Yep.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. But anyway, my buddy plays down in Jamie.
It's probably Lake Michigan, Hilly.
It is Lake Michigan.
Is it Lake?
There you go. Yeah,
it is. Yeah.
Aren't you a fucking? We won't get into the map test you wrote for me in college that time. That's the one I missed.
Yeah.
But anyway, so my buddy plays with, I forget who he plays with now in the Thumb Fastpitch League. So I don't know if you ever heard of that. But anyway, he told me, or he wants me to go down and play him. So I told him I'm going to go to Petoskey and play that tournament one more time before I hang it up. So maybe we can convince Lolly to come out one time.
Yeah, I think we're going to do it. He's
we used to love going up there.
Do you know who Jamie Tackaberry is? Have you ever heard that
Yes,
name?
I do.
Yes,
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
One of our best buddies, and playing down there. Yeah, played down there. It was awesome. And actually, that same year that Hilly went down, 2003, I went to Ashland, Ohio, which I know you also played in 2019 with the Ashland A's. So it's a couple of degrees of separation here, which is pretty cool. But when I just want to go back to the Gremlins year in 2018. So that was a that was an awesome year for that organization. Came away with the ASA and the ISC. Being relatively new to the circuit as a player in those tournaments, those major ones, the ASA and the ISC, did you have an appreciation for, the difference between playing a regular tournament and then playing in these majors? I know the Gremlins organization takes the ASA very, very seriously, probably as serious as they take the ISC. What was it like to go through those two, we call them ring tournaments, but majors, as a part of that organization?
Yeah. It's funny. There's really no difference. I mean, they're a little more serious when it gets to that, obviously, but it's the same stuff. It's the same leather talk of, you guys been playing all year. You guys been playing for years together. Just go do you. And that's honestly at this point, that's what guys are doing, right? Like they're just playing the game, and obviously they're gung ho and wanting to win the motherfucker. But it's just one of those things where I don't know. To me, it was another tournament that they were just trying to win. I mean, I know that sounds silly, but they just took it as they didn't ever want to lose. And I appreciated that because I sure as hell don't like losing.
Yep. That was in Kitchener, that one, wasn't
it? Yes. Yeah. So the ISC was in, ISC was Kitchener. Yep.
That's
ASA was South Bend.
Varmy was chasing the old duck at center field.
Yes.
So what was it like? What was it like playing behind the leadership of Varm Metatosian?
Leadership of Varm. I'll tell you something that's very funny about the Gremlins, and I appreciate the shit out of it. These guys, they would get into situations to where they would put me, like pinch hit me, in a position where I would either get out and we would go to the next inning, or we would mercy them. And so he would never hit. So like they'd be like, Varm, hurry up, grab your helmet, get out there. And he'd be all pumped, right? And he'd just sit on deck. And he was like the only guy on the team, for whatever reason, that never put it together that, hey, dummy, you're never going to hit in this inning. Like, what are you doing?
Like it was statistically impossible for him to hit.
Literally. And he's the only guy that didn't know it. And so, I mean, they did that multiple times. And I always heard him talking shit when I'd go and catch Juan over to the side. He's just like, God damn it, we always let the kids hit and I don't ever get to. And, it was funny. It was good stuff.
Yeah. Well, you just mentioned another beauty there in Juan, and two previous guests on the podcast, and we got Varmy here supporting it from the Mr. Ned stuff. So we talk about those guys all the time, but anyone who's listening now that listened to Juan Portalicio's episode can already have an appreciation for the type of character he is, but I'm sure you do too, getting to be his teammate that year.
Yeah. He did a very consistent thing across every game. I think he honestly just did it because there was somebody there to catch him. So actually, I should probably put that in the mix. I went there actually as a catcher. So when I started Fastpitch, I was a catcher. That's what I did. So I actually went there to catch Juan and kind of start seeing the pitching, and kind of, if I can catch it, I can at least get closer to hitting it, right? So that was the whole point of why I was there. Well, that asshole, all he ever did was throw me 70. And again, I'm just coming from B ball. So like my very first inning catching him, he's just throwing me 72-mile-an-hour knuckleballs. And I'm like, God damn. and what he literally would do is he would throw them until I wouldn't catch one and it'd hit me. And he'd be like, oh, all right, dipper. And then he would throw that. Very next inning, right back to the knuckleball. I mean, that's what he did consistently. Yeah. But he was a beauty, man. He was awesome.
He was so fun to play against, man. Like I could last going off, like I could hardly have an at bat at him with keeping a straight face. Like I just laugh at him all the time, and like then he'd start throwing these knuckleballs and making funny faces on the mound. I'm like, man, yeah, he's a beauty.
Yeah, he's a trip, absolute trip.
Yeah. Well, that must have been pretty cool to come out of that year with two major championships under your belt in your young career. But we've talked about it on a number of episodes, and we've talked about it more specifically around your development within the ISC circuit as being one that's you're setting yourself up for long-term success, right? And there's a bit of a formula, if you break it down, for some of the top players in the game, where start playing on a smaller budget team, and some of these back road town tournaments and getting a feel for it, then getting yourself established, and you're playing every single game and learning the game, how to play it at a high level. And then there's a lot to be said about getting a break to go to a top-level team where you may not be starting at a young age and learn from the guys that are there and see what it's like to navigate these tournaments, how the top players in the game do it, and learn what it takes to win. But then after that season, you didn't go back to the Gremlins after that. You went to Ashland and then Kegel the year after that, where you're now back into a starting role, an impact role on a mid-level team, mid to high-level team, and get yourself noticed there to get on to the Kitchener-Hallman Twins team, where you're a starter on a top-ranked team in an impact role, and now you've set yourself up to be one of the premier players in the game. That is, and Hilly, I'll throw it to you on that. That's a formula that we've seen that's been proven successful time and time again, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you sometimes you got, and I tell it to my kids all the time, like sometimes the young kids get blinded by the big lights, right? Like you're playing with the big teams, the fancy uniforms and stuff like that. And it's all right to go and experience that. You go and you be a sponge, you take it all in, you soak it all up, and you fill whatever role is asked of you. But at some point, you got to go. If you want to make it to the next level and you want to progress through this game, you got to play. Simple as that. Absolutely. And we took the same path. I told you I started with Frankenmuth, Michigan. Budget, talk about low budget. We didn't have a budget.
Right.
Budget, right? I was living off of them butter and big drinks at 7-Eleven and
Slurpee.
The big gulps. Is there one?
The big gulps.
And hot and ready's at Little Caesars. But but I mean, yeah. So you take your lumps and you learn. I played with those guys for 3 years, and if I didn't do that, I'm sure I wouldn't have progressed as I did.
Yeah.
Was that something, Blaine, for you that was that intentional or something that you were aware of as you were, looking back on where you are now in your career, an ISC champ, playing for the national team, actually two-time ISC champ now. Looking back on your career so far, were those conscious decisions, or is that kind of just how it played out?
It was it kind of played out, to be honest. So and actually to throw this in there. So after the Gremlin season, I actually didn't play the entire season with Ashland. Our local team, our Michigan team was, we won our A-level nationals. Like we were good. We were a very good state level team. And a lot of them, including my brother, were like, hey, we're only going to play one more year. And so I said, you know what, screw open. I'm going to go play with my brother one more year. And after that, I'll go to open. I'll be 23. I'm not that old. So I actually decided to play with him for the whole year, then got to ISC. Craig Scott reached out to me, and because actually Craig Scott and Bill Birkenpass, who's a guy that was on our team, our Michigan team, they're good friends. So he reached out to him, blah, blah, blah. I play ISC with Ashland. Had a decent ISC. I think we were top 14 or something like that, top 16, something like that. So then the next year was the COVID year. And I actually decided to play with Kegel, and due to that was because, that's kind of a funny story, BJ Gullick, longtime Kegel guy, he actually was the youngster on my dad's team when my dad was kind of done playing his last few years.
That's cool.
Yeah, so he was the young kid playing on their team, and so I thought it was very cool, to go play when he was the old guy and I was the young guy. I thought that was sweet. So I did that, and then we had the COVID year. And to be honest with you, I would say the COVID year was like the turning point in my career, because it was like taking a step, but not a full step to open. So I never really had that like wild, like, holy shit, Volkard's throwing pellets right now. Like I never had to deal with that. Like I had a year of facing, good pitchers, John Guzdala, Dwayne Weiler, Louis Amaya. I mean, I'm facing good guys. They're just not the top, 7 guys. So having that, being able to face those guys was a very good stepping stone to then getting into the Kegel year. And that was when we brought in all, Roman Godoy, Juan Cruzara, Fetty, and Pecker. And all of a sudden I'm looking around, I'm like, shit, we got a chance to win this thing.
Right.
And but I don't know, right? I'm just talking. I think I know. And we actually won Boys of Summer. So I'm kind of thinking like, wow, we actually got a shot. You know, we beat the Gremlins. Never beat Hill, but we beat the Gremlins and they got a shot. So so I would say the COVID year was huge. And then going into kind of just stayed with them. And to be honest, once Ron was the USA coach, kind of just hitched my wagon to him. And I knew that longevity, he wouldn't sit me on the Twins, because if he sat me on the Twins, then it doesn't benefit Team USA. So that was a kind of big part of why I kind of rode that horse, to be honest, just because I knew if I was going to take a jump and play with a top four, you know, it has to be with somebody like Ron, who I know is not going to sit me.
I do, but you probably don't remember this, but I think in 2018, I guess it was, when you were at the Gremlins, you did have some at-bats against me in Oakland. So you did face some top level pitching.
Wait, when was this in Oakland?
There was a game, Blaine, and if
you were with the Gremlins,
you might not remember, but he's never going to forget it.
I'm sure it was you. It had to be. And we played in Elkland, and it was one of the round robin games, but it didn't mean dick all, because we were in the playoffs anyway. So I think Hawk was running the show, and Hawk goes, "Hilly, you're pitching." I was like, "Fucking right, bring it on, give me the ball." So it's like 8-0 in the second inning. He walks out to the mound. I'm fucking purple in the face. Right? I'm fucking sweating bullets. He goes, "Hilly," he goes, "How you feeling?" I said, "Oh, fucking great, man. Got him right where I want him." Like, you know, I said, hopefully you're taking this ball from me. He's like, "Yeah, we're gonna put Powell in." I was like, "All right, see you later."
Thank God.
Oh man, there was balls going everywhere, but it was the funniest thing for me. So I'm playing first base. Hilly's on there, right, and just jacked up. Hilly pitching against the Gremlins. Like you can't wish for this, right?
Yeah, but I didn't even care. I didn't even care about beating them. You know, the scoreboard had the radar.
That's
they got the radar. So I tried everything I could to get to 80.
Yeah,
couldn't do it.
You got this. I thought you got to 80 on one, but it was
it was 79. 79. It was a one hopper. I think it bounced right in front of the plate. And
it went in the dirt.
Misread.
It didn't matter where it went. I was fucking proud. I was like, fucking right.
Like everything stopped, and I don't know who was in the batter's box. I can't remember who it was, but Hilly just stopped, stared at him, turned around and looked up. This at the hitter. Turned around and looked up at the 79 on the pitch clock, turned around and nodded at him. He's like, "Here you go. You're facing top level pitching here." But that's
incredible.
Yeah, that is.
I love that.
I'll never forget that game as long as I live. But
that is awesome.
Yeah, so that's awesome, man, and it's a smart move when it comes to those decisions. Ron is a great guy to hitch the wagon to. And you talked about the U.S. men's national team. So as you're transitioning in your career into the open level fast pitch, playing within the ISC, you got the 2018 under your belt. When did you get in the USA program? How did that all come to be for you?
Yeah, so I actually played on the junior USA team in 2014. Oh geez, why am I blanking?
Jesus, you're playing fast pitch your whole life, sure. Fuck's sake.
Just about, yeah.
What are we doing all this research for, Hilly?
So actually that's funny too. So this is a wild story, and this is what kind of makes it. I don't know how everything.
Let me guess. You come at the womb with a softball. Let me guess.
Oh God, no. So I started at 15. I was 17 when I made the national team. At the time, I had something that weekend, and there was a 4-day long tryout to make the USA team, and it was in Midland. And I showed up, and I could only be there not only for one day, but for one session. So for 1 3-hour session, that's as much as I could do for the tryout. So I go, and I don't know if nobody could go to this tournament or what, but somehow they picked me to be on the roster. So I go and actually did okay. I actually played decent, but the whole time I'm like, gosh, these guys must seriously think I'm good for whatever reason. And I just felt like when I was getting hits at that age, I felt like when I was getting hits, I truly was just getting lucky. I really thought that was the case. So then get done with that circuit. And to me, I'm like, oh man, I got to keep all this USA gear. I doubt I'll ever play, and it's funny because I never thought about this, but in 2003, so I was 7, I actually have a signed ball from every USA player from a tournament in 2003. So that hung above my bed for as long as I can remember. So it's kind of funny, full circle on how I got to this. But long story short, my senior year of college, they invited me, and it was Leather and Hixie, invited me to a tryout in Florida. And so I go there, and, nobody knows me. I mean, they just knew that I ran for the Gremlins. And not sound too cocky, but I was by far the best player at the tryout. Like, I almost led every single category except for maybe average by Matt Ratliff's fisters that he always does. So to be honest, that last night, I hitched my wagon to the wrong guys when it came to partying, to be honest, because it was Palazzo, Mullins, and Dudley. But
they're the right guys.
They're the right guys.
Yeah. Not for the next day. So I'm throwing up the whole next day, the whole travel home. Terrible. But, I made the team in my eyes. And I get home. I'm home for like 6 hours. I get a phone call from Leather, breaks it to me that I didn't make the team. And I kind of thought he was kidding, but and looking back, it was a tad bit disrespectful. But I was like, well, why do you have tryouts if you already know who you're picking? And I truly wanted to know that answer. Like, I was pissed. Like I understood his reasoning, because he said, you haven't seen the pitching from other countries who are the teams that we're going to be facing. And I'm like, well, shit, I can hit our pitching. Like, what the hell do you want from me? It's all I can do. Like, what do you want me to do? Didn't make the team, and then had a very good year, that first open year in 2022 or 2021 with Kegel, and had a great year. And after that, I had paved my way at that time, which kind of stunk, because not stunk, but I always wanted that first phone call of, hey, you made the USA team, to be like, I was all pumped up, but I kind of expected it at that point. I kind of had like done everything, and it was cool. I mean, I was excited, but now it was just like, okay, now don't just be pumped about being on the team and traveling, like go be a key guy. And that was the next challenge, and that was difficult. And going to Argentina, I mean, I had myself penciled in, but everybody has to show out, and everyone's there for a reason. So if I go 0 for 7, next guy up. So, I mean, it was tough. I mean, this last year was a very, I would say, emotional roller coaster would be the best way to put it.
You also played a few positions, eh? Like, I know you played third base in Argentina, but you played, was it center field or right field in New Zealand? So did you, like, is that kind of your role, like utility?
Yeah. That's kind of what I've always been. And like I said earlier, I started as a catcher. And then they kind of said, hey, what are you better at? And I was like, I play center, like in college, that's what I play. And so I started playing center field. And it wasn't until I started playing. And honestly, I've always like played infield. I've been able to play infield, like in baseball, but I never really played it. I was always an outfielder or a catcher. So when Kegel tells me, hey, you're going to be our third baseman, I'm like, why? For what?
Hey, that's funny. That's funny, because that same tournament they told me I was going to be the third baseman, and I said, "Why?" For what?
Yeah, there we go. And it was so weird. Like, I didn't understand why, and he just basically said, like, you can cover a bunt. I'm like, okay, well, what if they hit one at me? Like, what if they don't bunt? Like, what happens then?
Then you're fucking dead.
Exactly. And I had a couple very hot shots at me, and I'm like, this sucks. And I had so many people ask me, oh, how do you like third base? Same answer every time. It sucks. It's terrible. I hate third base. And it's funny, even my first year playing, I got made fun of all the time because I was wearing a mouthpiece. And people are like, dude, why do you wear a mouthpiece? I'm like, I wear a cup too, and it's because my glove sucks. Like, what do you want me to
do? That's the best answer you could give for that. That's awesome. But so you got your feet wet down in Argentina with the team. You guys came away with the silver medal at that one, right?
No.
No.
Well,
we
lost to Cuba in the Bronze for bronze.
Okay. Because when was it was the Pan Am Games was another one, wasn't it?
That was the year before Czech Republic, I believe. 2 years
Gotcha.
ago.
Okay. I got my dates mixed up. But you get down there, okay, you're traveling with the team, you're getting to go, represent the USA, one of the most powerful nations in the world, and you get to put USA across your chest, right? It's a pretty big country. I know Fastpitch softball, the amount of people playing it are not as big as baseball, but you're one of 17 guys in a country of 300 million people that's pulling on Team USA. That's pretty freaking cool. Must have been pretty proud for your family to see that happen as well. And you get to experience that, but now that's when you're coming on the radar among the other top players in the game. The players that played with you, I'm sure, with New York Gremlins. When we were playing, you're always on the lookout for who's the next generation coming up, who's going to be making that splash and the exciting players to watch. And you were coming into that. But then we got to talk about this past year now, right? Which is a banner year for you. You're one of 2 or 3 guys in the game that everybody's talking about. And just walk us through this past season. You get on the Kitchener-Hallman Twins, which is a pretty storied organization, and you guys go on the run. Let's talk about the ISC run. We talked about it with Marshall on our last episode, but very excited to hear from your perspective what it was like to kind of navigate that ISC and come away with the victory.
Yeah. So I'll first start it off. It's funny because very first tournament is in Mitchell, Ontario, and we put up, I'm not 100%, but I want to say 12 runs in the first inning against the Alvinston Aces. And I remember just looking around and being like, holy shit, like these guys can all hit. Like all these guys are good. and like Ron's telling me like, hey, like this is a team that could compete for an ISC championship. And to me, that's what every coach is going to say, right? Like anybody in the top 6 is going to say that. So I didn't know how true that was. And, we just continued to play well all year, beat the Gremlins twice in New York that year. And all of a sudden now we're, to be honest, the only team we couldn't beat was Hill. We beat everybody else. And to be honest, this is my inner. I'm happy we didn't play you guys. And I'll be honest,
we were good, bud. Don't worry about it.
But no, and I'll tell you, and I did listen to Marshy's, and he's right. I mean, the MATA, the transition, and it's funny because I've never told anybody this, so this word's gonna get out, and I might not be liked anymore. But I was kind of talking shit about MATA. I'll be honest, like the whole season, like guys are like, dude, like you guys got a shot. And I'm like, man, Martine's our guy. Like MATA's not. Yeah. Like it's just there's no way. But I was seeing guys like he just was. It was weird. He'd give up a 4-hitter and he'd give up 2 home runs. And I'm like, God damn, like there's no way the best pitcher in the world is giving up 2 home runs in a game. Like that shouldn't happen. And ASA, same shit. I'm like, I'm going to see a next MATA. Well, I don't know. Just like you said, the Gremlins are an ASA team. The Twins ain't. They're not. And, and MATA hated it. Pitched like shit. Didn't even enjoy it. We got run ruled by JB.
And I can vouch for that. Because I played with the Twins at the ASA, and we played against Hill United, and MATA was on the mound, and we lost 17-5. So, the Twins are not an ASA team.
That was in South Bend. We beat you twice, Stephen, that weekend. Anyway, carry on.
But and then he gets to ISC, and I'm telling you, it was a different year. And I had heard him grunt throughout the year, but I'm telling you, in the first game, and I want to say we played Bar Buzz first game, and I heard him grunt in the first 3 innings more than I heard him grunt the entire year. And I was like, oh, okay, this is the MATA. Like I had faced him. I knew he was good, but I also am not at this time. Like I was nowhere close to being a top hitter in the world. So he's just throwing me strikes. Like he's not gearing up to throw against me. So I didn't know how good he really was. Well, at ISC, I found out he's extremely good.
Yeah.
He's very good.
And that's what they do. These top pitchers, these pricks, they pace themselves. They pace themselves all summer, right? And they're just going through the motions. We'll smack a gapper, smack a shot off them in Tavistock. We're like, oh yeah, I can't wait to face you at ISCs. Fucking different guy on the mound. White ball. Jesus.
Yeah.
Completely agree.
Actually, now I think the white ball's gone now. I think next year it's yellow ball, right?
Which is so good for me. I
Yes.
hate white balls. My God.
Yeah, me too.
I'm old school, man. I like the white balls. That's why I gave it up, actually.
Yeah.
They put that rule in. I said, I'm done. Get
I'm done. I hate that yellow
I was
ball.
like, later. But and a lot of what we're talking about with you right now, we covered with Marshall, but it's you played with the Gremlins, and you saw that team win an ISC championship. You were on the team, but a lot of the players that you played against this past summer, you played with them, and you know what they can do in that championship game environment. So what was it like for you going into that championship game, knowing you're going up against these guys? You're going to be relied on to be an impact player for your team. You're playing well, coming into your own. Where was your head at, as you walked onto the field for that game?
I'll be honest. I was pretty jittery. I was, and it kind of sucked because we kind of sat around all day and they just postponed it. And we're just sitting around all day, and I'm trying to stay up. I'm pounding energy drinks, and all of a sudden they're like, "Hey, we got to get to the field." And now it's like, "Oh shit, this is real. Like, we're playing." And I can't sit down. Like, I'm walking around all over. I'm just running. I'm stretching. I'm not even a ginormous stretcher. I'm stretching more than I have all year. And I just didn't know what to do. I'm just, I was literally lost. But once the game started, we kind of settled in, and I'll be honest, from the get-go, I'm like, we get out of the first couple innings, and I'm like, damn, like we gotta scrape a couple. Like, it's the only way. And every time they load up the bases, I'm like, this is it. Fuck.
Bring in Martin.
And then exactly. No, and Modest somehow
I just got it.
I don't know how the hell Mata gets out of these. I don't. I really don't. And honestly, and I know nobody on our team has probably touched on this, but the turning point in that game was the change up to Jerome Ramaki that was inside and was a ball, 3-0, and they called it a strike.
Yeah,
and he struck out later that bat.
Yeah,
that was the turning point of that game.
Yep.
And
I remember thinking
that would have,
especially after he struck out. I think anyone watching that game would have said, he was walked. He was walked. But
and the other one, the other turning point was Lynchy's catch in left center. He went and caught a diving play with Lasho or Brian Avery was on first, and Lasho hit one to left center, and Lynchy made a great catch with one out and probably would have scored a run if he doesn't catch it. And that's another turning point. I mean, those two events right there was the difference in potentially 4 runs.
Hilly, how often have we talked about that these championship games and these rings, the difference between a world champ and a world runner-up comes down to maybe 2 pitches. Like if you're talking about 2 pitches or 3, that was the ball that ended up being called a strike, leading to a strikeout against one of the best hitters, and then that pitch that went to the gap, diving play, and then big hit by Marshall, or you guys stringing a couple of hits together. It's when you get to that point, it's all about giving yourself a shot, and then one big play or a couple of big plays or something is
absolutely,
unless it's a blowout or a mercy win. The best games come down to some of these legend making plays, you call them.
Yep, absolutely, and that's the fun part of the game, right? I mean, that's literally what we play for, and it's huge. I mean, somebody comes up big with a hit, and it's like if he rolls over the shortstop, we might not be celebrating. Like it's crazy. I mean, and what's wild to me is we had guys, and this isn't a secret, Lynchy was a guy that honestly did not have a great year hitting this year, but he also saved us an ISC championship. Yeah. So, I mean, it's not always your core guys. I mean, I'm not saying Lynchy's not a core guy, but it's getting everybody in that. And sometimes it's your 7th or 8th guy that makes a play that changes the entire game. And that's huge.
Yeah. Yeah. They always say, sometimes at that level, it's a game of mistakes, but sometimes you got two ball teams on the field that just ain't making mistakes.
Absolutely.
It's a break. You get a break, and that that walk or strike three call or whatever it was, and then you got somebody that makes a big play, and that's the way you want to see it. Making big plays
Absolutely.
is the difference, right?
Hilly, it's like two top dart players, going for a 9-darter, and one guy gets it down to the 8-dart, and he misses, and then another guy does it for a 9-darter.
That's it.
Yeah.
Yep. Never happened again.
Yeah, we played a lot of darts, and we watched a lot of darts. I was in Newfoundland last weekend, staying at Hilly's house, and that's what we talked about. Hey, coming down.
Is that a Canadian thing? You guys are big time dart players?
I don't know. It's a Titania place in St. John's thing. Down in Hilly's basement, it's a thing.
Listen, it's a global sport.
Okay.
It is a sport. Let's not get it twisted here. It's a sport.
Sure.
Excellent. But so that was great. How was it to get that final out and celebrate with that team?
Yeah, it was huge. Looking at that group, and even though we were ranked number 1 going into that, I feel like most teams didn't think we were. And so to actually pave the way and actually do it was huge.
We didn't think you were number 1.
No.
Fuck, you never beat us.
They're not top 5.
I know. And that was kind of the point. And I know the Gremlins didn't think so, even though we have beat them more than they beat us. But still, on paper, we probably were not the best team. But we, for whatever reason, all year, and I mean top to bottom, like even our bench guys, they got just as rowdy as our starters. And that's a huge team. That's a huge thing with these good teams, is having even your bench guys into these games. So, the biggest thing was when we were celebrating, it wasn't just 9 of us celebrating. Like, it was the entire team. And that was special. Like, that was extremely special. And, for me, it goes back to that one ISC with the Gremlins, and we won it. And I remember thinking, like, damn, like, this is awesome. I wish I was a part of it, like truly a part of it. Right. Mm-hmm. And when it finally happened, like, it was an unreal experience. Unreal awesome experience.
Yeah. And Hilly, you talk about it all the time, like winning your first one, but as you describe it, winning, if you're lucky enough to win more than one, and then get to play an impact role in it, when you can walk away knowing that you had a big part to play in that victory. It's a pretty special feeling, and it's one you'll find out in years from now that sticks with you. But then you got the transition from there. That would have been a great way to end off any season, but you had to quickly get ready to go down to the WBSC, one that's been postponed for a while now. And my outlook on the evolution of the USA team over the last couple of cycles, it's gone through some struggles off the podium for a couple of cycles, but you can see there's a lot of hard work that's been put into that program, a lot of development within it. And it was great to see you guys get back on the podium down there, come away with the bronze medal. What was that like for you and the group? Just sum up the WBSC for yourself and what it meant for Team USA.
Well, to be honest, I don't know if you guys see us as much as we do, but that was the first time we've medaled in 22 years. So for us, that's huge to start with. And what was even better, which kind of helped us out, is one, we almost pissed one away against the Philippines. But after that, we play New Zealand, and we had the biggest win that we've ever had in program history against them. And it's also like the first win we've had in, 30 years or something crazy. And it's wild. Like that whole experience. And it's funny watching the guys that, like I was just saying, like, it's not always your top 3 guys that always win you ball games. And, some of the middle of the pack guys, and talk about Lynchy, had a, like I said, a rough for him type ISC, and had a lights out WBSC. And we had guys like that all the time. And we just had timely hits. Like, Schiller didn't have the tournament that he wanted, but he also had a big home run. And same with Palazzo. And Mullins wasn't super amazing, but he got on and walked for some of us to get on. So it was always just passing the torch with all of us. And it was a really cool experience.
Yeah, I didn't get to see that. Like, I just seen the highlights of the bronze medal game, but you guys beat Argentina. So that had to be pretty cool too, to beat the defending world champs to get a medal.
Yeah. And to be honest, I mean, I wasn't sure, and I don't know how many people, minus Brad, thought that we were going to go in there and win. And it's hilarious because we went in that shootout with Australia 12-9 and lost. And those two play off Argentina, Australia, and when Australia won by 2 and we had to play Argentina, Brad's like going nuts in his room, and we're like, what the hell are you so pumped about? He's like, we can beat Argentina. And I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about? Like, come on.
That is cool, though.
It was unreal. I mean, we just kind of loaded up on Brad. And I'll be honest, I don't like giving this guy that much credit but he's a good friend of mine. Brad Kilpatrick is the man. And he's one of those guys, and he's one of those guys that he has that demeanor in the circle where you would run through a wall for him, like at any time, because you just know he's busting his balls. And to me, I'm that guy. Like, I feed off that energy and I love it. And so for me, it starts with Brad. When I see somebody that's absolutely battling in the circle, I'll do whatever to win for that guy. And I just felt like we were like that top to bottom. I really do.
Yeah, because you guys have been really kind of pitching by committee throughout the whole week there until that last game.
Yeah.
It's just Brad's ball, and here it is.
Yeah, we kind of had a game plan only because, to be honest, like in Argentina, Brad got burnt. I mean, he was great the whole tournament, and when it came to the last game against Cuba, he was just burnt out. He just was. And what's the point? Yeah, I mean, what's the point in making a medal game if you're just going to go get your ass kicked because your ace is absolutely toast? I mean, it's cool to make that game, absolutely, but it just was. We had a game plan. We knew what we were doing, and I will give Musi a pat on the back for doing it the way it probably should have been done, even though there was a lot of discrepancy with it, if that makes sense. Because I know guys were talking about, goddamn, and it's funny. I even had my dad, who was in New Zealand, after we lost to Czech Republic because Brad wasn't pitching. We even had my dad go up to the coach and was like, hey, back in my day when we had a horse, we rode him. And I'm like, come on, man. But that was that was an across the board comment. Like, it really was. And they stuck to the game plan, and we trusted them. We really did. I mean, we were questioning it, but at the same time, we're like, you know what? Let's just go play. That's what we have to do. And it ended up obviously working, which is huge.
Awesome, man.
Yeah. So that's, having had a few months now, or a couple of months anyway, to digest the season that was, you must be pretty excited now to head into 2024. A lot of changes. We talked about it on the last episode, but you're among the core from the Hallman Twins team that's moving to the Stompers. What are you looking forward to about the upcoming season?
Kind of just running it back. I know it's not the same exact team, but as Marshy kind of touched base on, I mean, we had no idea that our team was not going to be a team in 2024. We won it, and it was literally, we got home, and I was home for like an hour and got the text that they were folding. Well, it's like, well, son of a bitch, what's that mean for me? And so then, Ron, and I'll give him all the credit in the world. I mean, he immediately got on the phone, and 2 days later, I was committed to the Gremlins. 3 days later, I was committed to Hill, and I didn't know what the hell I was doing. He called me one day, like, hey, you're gonna play with the Gremlins. I was like, all right, sweet. And then 3 days later, hey, that one fell through. You're gonna play with Hill. All right, sweet. And then, hey, that one fell through. We got another opportunity, and it's a way to have a majority of the group stick together. And I was like, sold. I'll go with those guys. That's the best answer, right? Because I was for sure gonna go back with the Twins. Right. So to run it back with majority of the core, I mean, we're going to definitely miss the guys that aren't on the team this year, but as a whole, it's a good group, and we also get the luxury of having Patty Shannon on the bench, and there's just guys there that are either veterans or that are very good players. I know Brock from New Zealand. I mean, he's kind of a new young up and comer. I want to play with some of those guys. That's fun to me. I like that.
Yeah, they had some internationals last year, like Patty and Brock, and all those guys coming back, or?
Yes. Yep. As far as I know, I Pitta, Brock, and Patty are all coming back. Oh, and Reese Evans. We also have him.
Wow. Perfect, man. It's going to be an exciting year because whenever you see a team like the Kitchener and Hallman twins fold, it's not what you want to see in the game, but to see another team kind of make that next step to being among the top 3, 4, 5 teams in the world, at least is going to keep some of the top players from that team playing together, and it'll be a nice transition into the 2024 season. You never want to see an organization like Kitchener Twins and a sponsor like Jim Hallman leave the game, but there's always comes a time when that happens. So I'm really happy to see that's where you guys landed, not just for yourselves and for the Stompers, but just for the league. It's going to be good. And Hilly, I know that it's going to be an interesting year. It's probably going to be the season that we look forward to the most in watching. Like all these tournaments are going to mean something, and it's just going to see how are these teams coming together. Your Bear Creek team is a prime example, but you guys will probably see a lot of each other in a few months.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's going to be much like last year, like a lot of parity and you know, type of deal. There's like 5-6 teams that can win the thing, right? You know, which is nice as opposed to the 1-2 horse race.
Yeah, and I feel like it's been like that for years, right? I mean, it's been like that forever. And I said it last year. I was like, wow, this almost seems like the most competitive it's been in years. And I'd actually like to, if you guys can look into this. I never did any research on it, but when was the last time that the Gremlins or Hill were not in the winner's bracket final? Do you guys know that?
Probably 2010 or 11 before. Because, Hill formed in 2012. We were in it pretty well every year
right
since then. And then the Gremlins were either in it. And there was a period of time where it was Hill Gremlins Gators or Hill Gremlins Kitchener, Hill Gremlins Jarvis. But of that, you were going to have one of Hill or Gremlins. So I would say it was probably 2011 because we played in the winner's bracket final with Chicago, New York, and we played against Jarvis. So I think that was the last year Hill or Gremlins weren't in.
Yeah, we just thought about that last year when we made it, and it was us and JB. We were like, I wonder when the last time, Gremlins and Hill haven't been in. So, just kind of curious.
Well, and this is a message to any future guests to come on here. Start throwing out trivia questions like that. It's interesting, and it leads to a great way of wrapping up the podcast. But Blaine, this was awesome, buddy. Getting you come on here, and we've been watching you from afar, and then from pretty close playing against you. To see your rise up to where you're at now at this stage of your career has been very impressive, to say the least. You're doing it the right way, and wishing nothing but success, continued success going into 2024, and really want to thank you for taking time to come on with us.
Hey, I appreciate you guys for having me.
Yep. Real quick before you go, Michigan boy, you Red Wings fan?
I'll be honest, I don't like Detroit. Like, Detroit's a terrible city for having sports.
Go Leafs,
I don't know if you know that.
Okay, buddy. Talk to you later.
I would pick the Wings over the Leafs, though, for sure.
Okay.
All right. Yeah. Talk to you later.
Right.
Excellent, man. Hilly, another great episode, buddy. And we got Lucas and Nick here. A little bit of rum ragged to take us out.
Ladies' man, but I'm a man now. For courting 6 girls all at once they use me.
Bye-bye baseball!
My mother said it was naughty, I should kiss her back. But I said if it's naughty, sure it's also very fine.
And the lolly drops his glove, grabs Dalton. The benches are clearing.